We're going to have the Farm Report with Harry Siemens, brought to you by Wolf Enterprises. So, hello and good morning, Harry. How are you doing on this wonderful Monday morning?
If I was any better, I couldn't stand it.
Well, there you go. That's that's always a good thing.
Yeah, that's
So,
real good.
right? So, Harry, what is the latest in farming?
You know, there's so much happening. We're first and foremost we have the whole issue and discussion with the federal government regarding the carbon sequestering, carbon credits, carbon tax, all that stuff, and there are some things that are happening there that I think is very detrimental to farming and agriculture. Where farmers are going to have to continue to pay, and yet farmers have for many years. Like I farmed with my father back in 1960. That's going back, and Dad was a big farmer, and he was a great farmer. He was on the cutting edge, but the cutting edge back then isn't the same as the cutting edge that my nephew and my brother farm today. They've made so many changes. People sometimes forget that the farmer depends totally on the environment. If they were anywhere wanting to destroy the environment, they wouldn't have a place to raise their family. They wouldn't have a place to raise their income and so forth, and feed the world. So I'm really concerned about what's going to be happening with the entire carbon credit, carbon tax basis, but we'll do a more in-depth program on a later date.
Well, no kidding, and that even makes sense because we discussed, I think, last week that farmers are so adaptable that you'd think a trade where they deal with agriculture, they would be trying to adapt and move towards a more sustainable future. So I'm so sorry that it's been rough on the farming front.
Well,
Um,
you bet, and you know what, for the most part, the word is there, adaptable, but we can only adapt so much, and if they keep taking the profits away, it's going to be more difficult to adapt.
well, no kidding. And so it seems like there's a lot of change in the air. I know, like, for example, over the weekend, first day of spring. So I guess the official first day of spring has been March 20th, even though it's felt like it's been beautiful weather for the past couple of weeks. So I guess on that hue, with it now being officially spring, what is the next step for farmers preparing their new spring crops?
Well, they've spent the last couple of months, the first 3 months, the last couple of months of 2020, you know, wrapping up the last year, getting ready for this year. And so
Yeah.
spring planting for some people is right around the corner. Normally we would be looking at the middle of April, the last week of April, where we could start to go in southern Manitoba. But now we're March 22nd. It's so dry out there that some farmers are going to be tempted to turn that soil. So when it gets windy, we're not going to have that soil blow away. And because we had very little snow in this part of the world, farmers are looking for runoff. There is no runoff, to fill up the sloughs, to fill up the storage ponds for potato irrigation and so forth. So right around the corner, we hope it isn't going to be as quick. We're still waiting for moisture, but spring planting is right around the corner, believe it or not.
Well, like you mentioned that, and in a sense, that's a little bit shocking to me, just because I remember as a kid, we had like a small garden in our backyard, and I remember it was the May long weekend. And granted, this was maybe about 15 years ago, so 15, 20 years ago. So global warming and climate change hasn't really been a thing yet at that point. So I remember we would get our crops ready for our gardens in May. So to hear you say basically 2 months earlier, hey, it's it seems like farmers are forced to start plowing now, even though the ground is really dry.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it isn't that way all over the place. I mean, the further west we go from where I am, the further north they had more snow. So, of course, they're not going to be on it. But we're here in southern Manitoba, and we're going to have to wait and see. We can get rain, we can still get snow, and so we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, on the farmers' minds, a lack of moisture. Secondly, The tractors are primed and not running maybe, but they're ready to go, and we'll be planting before we know. But you mentioned you were a kid 15 years ago. I'm still a kid, so
We're all kids at heart.
that's right, and so that's good. You know what? Keep up the good work. It was a great interview. I just watched the tail end of the last one.
Oh,
That's the kind of stuff we need to see and hear. Positive, and let's just keep motoring and keep going forward.
oh, well, thank you. You're very kind. I'm a very quirky person. It's like people will love it or they hate it. So if they love it, great. If they hate it, well, that's your decision. So
Yeah, right on. Oh
I
yeah.
guess it's well, like honestly, you had so much wealth of information in that last question. So I want to quickly elaborate on one quick thing. Um, so you mentioned that farmers are looking for the word used was not drip offs, runoffs. Sorry, runoffs. Which of course they're being less snow this year. So if they can't find runoffs, what are they theoretically supposed to do? Because then otherwise, your planting soil is dirt, not soil. There's a, in most
You're right.
West.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it's and my dad farmed 55 years, and I think he had one crop failure, and then it was too much moisture. We have very few crop failures with either too much moisture or too little moisture. We live in a great place, but when we can't, I mean, there are many areas where we've got man-made water systems that depend on water from the rivers and so forth. But the lower everything comes, and the more we use from all of that, it's a challenge. But you know what? I'm not about one to say it's all doom and gloom. It's not. Agriculture will continue to be there, and at the same time, but there are some things that one can't do if we don't have moisture.
No kidding. Well, then let's hope that Mother Nature gives us a reward and maybe gives us some rain for this great weather.
Yep, good rain. Yeah, you met. If we could get 2, 3 inches of rain, and we're spoiled. We would like it over a 3-day period, but if it comes quicker, so be it.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess for our last question, because again, I love chatting with you, but we only have so much time. So our last question of the segment, in our remaining time, Harry, what are your final farm thoughts that you would like to give our amazing viewers?
Well, you know what? Never forget that the farmer is the one that feeds the world. But there are only so many farmers. 1.5, maybe 2% of the population. There's a whole nother, a larger supplier group that also helps us feed the world. And the other thing I want to let you know, and if you eat, Luna, you're involved in agriculture.
I like that. Farmers feed the world, and if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. So if you eat, unless you're a hermit, which I'm not judging, you're a hermit that has a self-sustainable acreage that grows everything. Unless that's your life, you should take some time out of your day today and thank a farmer. So,
Absolutely, every day. You bet. Very good.
well, on that cue, thank you, Harry,
Yep.
for being both a farmer for decades and feeding decades worth of people, and also thank you for being on the show. Like I say, it's true, but I'll say it every day.
Yep.
You are a joy to talk to on the show, and I'm always excited to have you on my schedule every Monday morning. So mark your calendars. Make sure to check out the Farm Report every Monday morning with Harry Seaman. So thank you so much, Harry, and we'll see you again next Monday.